Welcome to You Multicultural channel. I am Jocelyn Gilbert, and today at the Newcomer Network, we will be talking about building strong connections and relationships in Canada. Not only in Canada, everywhere we go. And today, Genny Sacco-Bak is visiting us. Hi, Genny. How
Hi,
are
Jocelyn.
you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good and very happy to have you here for first time.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. You know, Genny, as a newcomer, I experienced lots of feelings when I arrived here. And I always tell the people something that I didn't was the isolation or missing people around me, because I was all the time connected to many people.
Yes.
But this is not something very common in newcomers' life.
Right.
And today I would like to have this chat with you because I know that you are surrounded by newcomers about that.
Okay.
But before we start, I would like you to introduce yourself with our audience.
Of course. So as Jocelyn mentioned, my name is Genny Sacco-Bak. I am an instructor at the University of Winnipeg PACE. So PACE stands for Professional Applied Continuing Education. And I teach international students a number of different courses: effective oral communication, fundraising, event management, PR fundamentals, and leadership development. And I really love teaching international students because they're coming to Canada and they're learning a new culture, a new experience. And so it's gratifying for me to be able to give them a little bit of guidance and help them as they adjust to life here in Canada.
Yeah. I'm so excited to share this information with our audience or our insights. Building relationships is very important. Sometimes we think what we know is important, which is, but it's not what we know, it's who we know.
You're right. It's about networking. And networking can be difficult, not just for newcomers, but for anyone really, because if you are a little bit more of a shy person and you don't want to make those connections, or you're afraid that you might be judged, and I know a lot of that, especially with public speaking, and it's being judged, it's forgetting, it's being a little shy maybe. And sometimes, especially when you're a newcomer and English is not your first language, it's difficult sometimes to make yourself understood.
Yeah.
And so that's what I work with my students, is that I help them with their pronunciation. And the one tip that is really good for people that are newcomers, that English is their second language, is to slow it down. Take pauses, slow it down, really try to enunciate. Because sometimes, especially if you were to speak in your own language, you would speak very quickly. Because if you're speaking to people that understand you, you can speak very quickly because they understand. But when you're doing that to someone who maybe doesn't speak Spanish or Italian or Punjabi, it's difficult for them to understand. And so it's learning how to make those connections by really paying attention to their body language, how they're presenting themselves, and really just slowing things down so that the person that they're speaking to can understand what they're saying.
Yeah. And even when English is your first language, for example, we know people who speak English as their first language is English, but they're coming from different countries and they speak with a different accent.
Yes.
So when they speak very fast, for us, it's very difficult to understand. So I would like to touch base on that.
Same thing. And I actually had a student once who apologized for her accent. And I said to her, there's no need to apologize because we all have an accent. I have an accent to you. And I was born here in Winnipeg. I've always spoken English. And so everyone has a different type of an accent. And again, the same thing is if you have an accent, especially if you have a stronger accent, it's to really slow it down. So you almost want to enunciate words slowly. It may seem weird to slow it down because you want to speak things up, but if you're speeding it up and you get excited, and I'm the same way in English, if I get excited, I'll start talking really fast, and then I need to slow it down. So if you have an accent, if your English is your second language, just slow it down, take your time, because you want the other person to understand what you're saying. And so that is the purpose of having that conversation, is that you both understand each other.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're
This is a
welcome.
wonderful tip. And you know that sometimes when we have events, people don't want to go to those events because they don't want to face a multicultural environment because of the language. They feel afraid. They feel embarrassed if they mispronounce a word. But I think this is another thing we should have in mind, that even in our own language, when we are speaking, we mispronounce words. So it's normal. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I also mention all the time, English is not our first language, and other people know. So don't be afraid of mispronouncing a word. And maybe when that word does not come to your mind immediately, because sometimes we're just looking for that word in our mind when we're speaking.
You're translating in your head.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I find that when I talk to my students, because of course, it depends on who the person that they're speaking to. Now, if the person that they're speaking to is someone who is kind, who is welcoming, they will be patient and wait for the person to finish speaking. Also, you mentioned about, mispronouncing a word. If you're speaking to someone and you mispronounce a word, you can either ask the person, did I say that correctly? Or the person might say, well, no, actually, you meant to say this is how you say it. So same thing for me. When I would go to Mexico, I would, I had this little phrase book, and I would try to pronounce and speak the language. And sometimes I would get it wrong, and someone would correct me, because if they're correcting you, they're not telling you did something wrong. They just want to make sure that you know how to say it. And so that next time, or sometimes you have trouble with certain letters. I know, especially with Spanish, it's the rolling of the R's and so on. And so you might have some difficulty with that. English is a hard language. Not only a hard language to learn, but a hard language to pronounce or to say. And also there are so many different words that are spelled differently, that sound the same, but mean something different. And so it's trying to figure out which is the right word that I'm supposed to be using. Now, my husband, he was born in Italy, but he came over to Canada when he was 6. So he's been speaking English for 60 years. He still has trouble with English. And it just,
Wow.
It really depends on how much you want to use the language. And I say to my students, practice, just talk to everybody, talk to everybody. When I'm teaching my classes, I get them to talk as much as possible, because that's the only way that you're going to learn, is to practice.
Yeah, I think language shouldn't be a barrier for us to start connecting with other people.
No, I agree. And it should be a connection. We should be able to help each other. I should say, Jocelyn, I love the way you say that. What does that mean? Or, I say to my students, if they're saying something and it's like there's not a word in their language that translates to English, I say, well, say it in your language. Say whatever it is that you want to say in your language, but we'll get the gist of it. Because don't forget, it's not just what we're saying. It's how we're saying it, and our body language as well. Because that's the first thing that people notice, is what is your body saying before your mouth says anything. So it's really that connection and being open.
Yeah. And now that you mentioned the body language, I even wrote a short posting on LinkedIn about that, because body language means different according to the different cultures.
Yes.
For example, for Indians, when they say yes, they do like this. And I was like, that's yes or that's no, because for us, that could be like no or more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for example, for other cultures, eye contact, it's disrespectful.
Yes.
So when I am looking at you, but I don't look at you, you might feel disrespected. And there are so many things, even your fingers, the way you use it, the way you put your fingers, I don't know, mean different.
Yes.
Yeah, and we should learn about that.
You know what? Especially if you're traveling to a certain country, or you know you're going to be, let's say, Folklorama is coming. So you're
I'm going there.
Me too. You might go to a pavilion, let's say Japanese pavilion. All right. Now I know the Japanese tend to be a little bit more. Trying to think of the word, a little bit more, not strict, but very proper, proper. Not so much distance, but so for instance, Formal, yes, formal is a good word. So, for instance, if I ran into you on the street and it's like, "Hi, Jocelyn," right away, hug, because that's what people from Latin America do. They hug and they get close and they kiss, and and people from Japan or maybe even China are so much like, like you wouldn't like automatically hug someone unless you knew that. Let's say you knew each other and then it's like, okay, I'm going to hug you, but you wouldn't do that right off the hop. So it's really learning to read the body language. So for instance, if I was coming up to somebody, let's say I didn't know that you were very friendly and huggy, and let's say I saw you and you were like this, or you were kind of like, like I would read your body language and know, okay, so can I approach or not? And it's paying attention as well. Also too, if I'm rambling on about something and going la 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 la, and you're like, okay, when is she going to stop talking? And I'm not paying attention. But if I'm rambling on and I see your face, right? Because I don't have a poker face, so you can read my emotions. But if I see your face and it's like, okay, I'm talking too much, and so it's up to me to, and that's what you do. You pay attention to what we're doing and looking for signals, and that really does help.
Yeah. That's true. And it's important to know that and to recognize them, because we need to build those connections. When we don't build connections, we are missing lots of benefits.
Yes.
For example, resources. You need housing, you need to find a family doctor, you're looking for a job, but when you don't have those connections, it's harder, because those people around you are the ones who will support you during the process.
And that's why it's so important to belong to cultural organizations, because they have already done that work. They can provide those tips on where to find the best daycare, where, for apartments, grocery shopping. I've had students ask me, so where can I find a restaurant that serves the food that I have back home? Where are the different ethnic grocery shops? So it's having a little bit of home. And Winnipeg, that's what I love about Winnipeg as well. It's such a, I don't want to use the word melting pot, but that's basically what it is, because you have certain areas of the city where there's big pockets of different cultures. And even sometimes, like I live in the west end of the city, and on Sargent and Ellis, there's so many different cultural organizations and restaurants, and everybody coexists together. And, so you'll have a Italian restaurant, and then there's, a Korean restaurant, or there's, an Indian restaurant, or an Ethiopian, or, and they're all within the same area, and you get to choose what you want to do. So, one day I might want this, but then I want to try that. And so it's really leaning into the culture, learning to join those organizations, learning to even volunteer for Folklorama. I mean, right now it's a little too late because it's starting next week, but thinking about, there's different festivals that are going on throughout the year, and just showing up and say, hey, I want to get to know you and get to learn. And that's how you make those connections, is doing that networking.
Yeah. And also understanding other people's culture, and learning from, because we all have different points of views.
Yes.
So when we don't connect, we are missing that opportunity to, and also the emotional support, because you feel, oh, I cannot make it, or you have lots of fears in your mind that when you talk to someone else, you feel even talking to someone makes you feel better.
It does.
Or finding people that you will feel identified with because they are struggling with the same, or people that went through that process and can encourage you. You can feel inspired.
Yes.
But also those ones that are not newcomers that will learn from you too.
Absolutely.
Can support you or teach you about how things work in here.
And don't forget, we're learning from you as well. So the more that I can strike up a conversation with someone who's from a different culture, it's learning more about their culture. I did a presentation, or my students, I should say, did a presentation yesterday. And one of my students is from Nigeria. And they were doing an event plan. And for the sponsorship tiers, he had titles for the sponsorship tiers that were in his language. And so instead of just gold, silver, bronze, or whatever, he was very specific in terms of the different languages, or his word for, let's say the first one was because whatever that word was for Sir King. So what the king, right? And then that would be top level. And then the next level would be sort of, if the king wasn't available, it would be the next person in command. But to inject his culture into an event plan in English was, very inspiring for all of us that he could do that. Or, if somebody's talking about, instead of like just plain ordinary food, they want ethnic food or indigenous food. But going to that trouble of saying, I want to represent where I'm from, and so this is what I'm doing. And it was very inspiring.
Yeah, there are so many benefits. We learn, you learn, everybody learns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any other benefits that you would like to share today about building those relationships and nurturing those relationships too?
Okay. Well, I think the most important thing is to just be yourself. Don't be afraid to take risks. Look for the helpers, the kind people. You'll be able to find them. The ones that have a lovely smile, that are open, that actually notice you and want to make that connection and say hello, or say good morning, or ask directions. Can you tell me where the latest grocery store is, or what have you? And be open to trying new things. And I want to offer just a small little tip. The ones that are impatient with you, that don't want to take the time to understand or keep asking you, I don't get it. What did you say? What did you say? Don't spend a lot of time with them, okay? Because you're going to get frustrated. I know I've done the same thing. So look for the ones that you can tell. Again, look for the body language, smiles, eye contact, open body gesture, and don't be afraid to approach them and make connections, because that's what it's all about, is making those connections. And not just for the things that we've talked about, but sometimes making a new friend and getting those emotional connections, and maybe even inviting someone to your house for an ethnic dinner. I know I would be totally open to doing that, because that's how you learn to share, is sharing food. Food is love, and it's looking for the love that can make you feel like you belong here.
Yeah. And another tip I would like to add is try to connect with people from the same industry too.
Yes.
When you're looking for a job.
When you see there's a networking event, and I know Jocelyn does a really good job in planning these networking events. So when you have an opportunity, or go to a local church, I know that in Winnipeg in the fall, there are a lot of fall suppers. So a number of different communities, a number of churches, they have a fall supper. So it's, it's usually either like a sit down or a buffet, but that's how you get to meet people from your own culture, or even try a different culture and learning how to connect with different people.
Yeah, I was going to mention that the events, I host many events, and right now I have been trying to bring other cultures to my events. And this networking, I have been organizing the networking for 3 years. This is going to be our third Hispanic networking event.
Ooh.
But this will be the first time we're bringing other communities, because this is what we want, to showcase what we are doing as a community to other communities. But it has been challenging because sometimes people feel, as you mentioned at the beginning, feel shy, or sometimes they feel, what if I am the only African, the only Ukrainian? I won't say African, but because there are so many countries in Africa,
Absolutely.
in Africa, but okay. Or what if I am the only Chinese? Go. Don't worry about that. So don't be afraid to go to a new place. And even if you don't know anybody.
Yep. And, take a chance. Take a chance, because especially when you're going to a cultural organization, chances are that the people will be very welcoming. And especially ones that have been here for a while, they are paving the way for the newcomers to come and to show them, all the different things. So even for me as an instructor, sharing different things with my students and giving them tips on places that they can find, some ethnic food or different cultures or different festivals. I have a couple of girls from Jamaica, and a couple of weeks ago there was a Jamaican festival. And so, hey, did you know about this? Or telling them to check out different organizations, So I would say almost every single country has some sort of a cultural organization here in Winnipeg.
Yes.
And so it's connecting with that organization and getting some advice, and maybe learning how to maybe volunteer and get to know more about what they're about, and to partner with other organizations. Because that's what I love, what you were saying about your networking event, just bringing other cultures into it. And I love that idea.
And learn from each other.
Yes.
Yeah, and also inspired, because we are all in different stages as newcomers. Some people have been here for 10 years, others they just arrived. But we have people with a very long time living here. We also know people who established their own businesses. What if you want to start your own business? You can connect with that person, and if you need an advice, or hey, how can I do it? I want to try. You have someone to lean on. You can get support. You can get an advice from that person.
Yes.
So, and not only when you're planning to have your own business, but as a long term for different purposes, it's very important to connect with people.
It is, absolutely. And again, it's taking a chance, because if you keep to yourself, you're not going to learn. And the thing is you want to assimilate into the culture. Yes, you are going to be different in terms of looks and so on, but that shouldn't stop you from wanting to be more involved in the community and connecting with each other. So just be brave.
Yeah, but now let's go deeper, Jenny. What do you think?
Yes, let's do it.
We have the relationships. We make those connections. What goes next? We met the people. Yes.
It's relationships, connections, and then where can we take it? Where can we take it? We can start partnering together, and we can start making things happen and being creative and thinking about, okay, so if you had a business back home, or you had a dance studio, or you had a choir, whatever you were doing, you had Italian, you had a little pizza shop, whatever it is, and now you're coming here, and the opportunities are not there for you to do what you were doing back home. Does that mean that you have to stop doing what you're doing? Not, well, for now, until you decide what you want to do next. Because a lot of times, and I know that newcomers coming to Winnipeg, it's hard to get jobs. And so sometimes getting a job that is working at Walmart, for instance, or working in a grocery store or daycare, or doing something because it's making money for the family, you're earning money for the family, It's that sense of self-satisfaction that I want to work, I want to earn money, I want to be productive. And so and that's the thing when you're coming to a new country, I find that a lot of the newcomers that I've known is that they're not afraid of hard work. They're not afraid to put themselves out there, to not feel too proud to do a job, because it's a means to the end. So working, saving money, and then eventually you have your dream of doing what you were doing back home, but maybe doing something completely different. And I know that the Punjabi the community, they tend to they live together, and I know a lot of Asian families do that. They tend to, everybody, so different generations live together, and that's a way of saving money. But they're also very industrious in terms of trying different things and working hard. I know a lot of my students, they skip the dishes, or doing those kinds of things, because it's earning extra money, but it's also getting you out there. And when you're delivering food or working at a grocery store or a retail store, you're speaking with people. You're learning how to speak English, practicing your English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No matter the job that you get, use it as an opportunity to connect with people.
Yes. It's very important to connect in so many different ways. It's asking directions, or asking to be involved in some way. I know there's a lot of community groups in the city that are not necessarily cultural, but it's, deciding that you want to join something in your area. Again, thinking about joining a church. You don't have to be religious. You just want to...
The activities.
Absolutely. Going to the library, going to the park, walking, just being outside.
Practice a sport.
Yes, practice a sport, absolutely. Smiling at people, as you're walking down the street, instead of looking down, looking at somebody and smiling and even saying hello or good morning, and just getting those connections. Yeah.
And nurturing those relationships. I remember that we connected through LinkedIn.
Yes.
And I don't know when you text me or if I text you, and we were connected, and I say, hi, how are you doing? I click like on your posts, and we talk a little bit. And then we realized that we could do something together, and here we are. But sometimes we meet the people and we feel shy to talk to that person, and we miss the opportunity to build that strong connection. Because you can meet people everywhere, but you need to nurture those relationships. And because when you need them, what you will do.
That's right. And it's always nice to have that circle of people that are in your corner, so to speak, the ones that you can call on to say, I'm having some trouble. I need advice. Let's go for coffee. Let's do something together. And it's being able to connect. And I think what happened, you were at the First Friday's coffee, and our mutual friend Joanne said, "Oh, I was so glad to meet Jocelyn in person." I'm like, "Who's this Jocelyn? I need to get to know her."
Oh, I didn't know you met her.
Yes. And so that's why I think I had reached out to you to say, "Oh, hi," and then you responded back, and so here we are.
Yeah, and this is the power of social media. I don't know, in most of our programs I have to talk about social media, but I met Joanne on social media.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my goodness, this woman, she looks Latina. This is a Canadian Latina woman. And because the way she speaks and everything, it's very Latino thing. So I text her, and we were in touch. We never met each other until that day. And that was awesome.
So connecting on social media, and that's the beauty of it, is that when you're connecting on social media, you can have that connection, and then eventually you'll want to meet each other. So you'll mention, let's go for coffee, or let's do something, or even meeting on Zoom. because I know that during COVID, we couldn't get out. And so we were doing coffee dates on Zoom. So you're having coffee at your place, I'm having coffee at my place, but we're talking to each other over Zoom. So however you can make that connection, I think it's important to try to get a connection and then see where it takes you.
Yeah. I know a few people, for example, I have a friend, he told me, I have lots of connections on LinkedIn. But what happened, it's not about all the connections that you have.
Yeah.
It's about who you can reach when you have an issue or when you need something or you could support or someone who feel comfortable to reach out to you.
Yeah.
It's because you are building that connection. It's not the same if we are friends or connections on LinkedIn and I go, hey, Genny, I'm looking for a job. What do you think? But if you see what I'm posting, you see my skills, you see the kind of person I am, and we have a relationship, you will feel more comfortable to refer me or recommend, make a recommendation and advice or support me. We are not close friends, but we have a connection, a relationship.
Absolutely. And it doesn't mean that you have to be best friends or close friends. Being friends is better than being an acquaintance, where it's just like you have an acquaintance who's there and maybe not. And we all have people in our lives that are only there to use you for something. It's like, hi, how's it going? Oh, by the way, did you know that I'm selling da 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 da? And it's like, okay, well, we're not friends because friends don't do that. But what friends can do is I'm starting a business or I'm creating an event and I'd love for you to support me. So even if I can't buy a ticket, I can share on social media, I can donate something, I can tell my friends. It's showing that support and being there in the way that works for us, because we can't always give money, we can't always give things, but we can give our time, we can give our energy, we can give ourselves to listen. So if someone like you, let's say you contact me and said, hey, I'm having some issues, do you have time to talk? Absolutely.
Listening.
Absolutely. Listening is very important.
Yeah.
And
now that you mentioned that, because this is something that happens very frequent to me, I create content for social media and I have, I won't say a huge community, but I have so many people that I could reach out. And people usually reach out to me asking, can you post this? Can you help me with this? But sometimes those people are not there, they are not present. I never see a like, I never see a comment. And I would like to have that support, but I don't feel supported. But when they need, they reach out to me. And it doesn't feel nice,
No. And the thing is for you to say, I'll do this if you do that. And of course they'll say yes, but then they won't. And so I think it gets back to, what are you willing to put up with? What are your boundaries? And if your boundaries are that unless there's a mutual connection, I'm not available, or I'm sorry, I'm busy right now, I can't do that for you.
Yeah.
And they'll go find someone else. Because, I'm the same way, like, when you constantly give and give and give and give and give, and you give to the point where it's like, okay, you know what? I'm tired of giving because I get nothing back. And I don't give to get. It's like people think, well, if I give you a present, then you should give me a present. No, if I want to give you a present, it's because I want to give. I'm not expecting you to give me something in return. So it's doing something from your heart because it's something that you want to do. But at the same time, if you feel that you're being taken advantage of or someone is expecting more than you're willing to give, I had a friend, so I have a friend who owns a store, and she was looking for a donation. She's never shopped there, but she came and she's like, I want a donation for this. And she was expecting that this person was going to give her a donation, even though she's never shopped there. See, I would never do that. I mean, it's different if you're looking for donations, you're calling company, doing cold calls. But if I'm looking for something, I will talk to stores and restaurants that I deal with because I have a relationship with them. And so if I'm asking them for something, but I'm also giving back because I'm eating there, I'm shopping there, I'm supporting them. And so they know that there's a relationship, between the two of us. And so they're more likely to give me something than to say to someone, well, I don't know who you are. I'm not going to give it to you.
Yeah. And that's the importance of building those strong relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about connections. It's about building relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all about building relationships, not only connections. Jenny, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this time.
Oh, thank you. I loved our chat. I think we should do it over coffee soon.
Yeah. And I would like you to talk a little bit about your podcast that you will resume.
Absolutely. I'd love to do that. So I have a Coffee with Genny B podcast. I currently put my audio podcast on hold, and I'm looking at venturing out and doing something on my YouTube channel. And so I'm looking at doing that in the fall. So that's Coffee with Genny B. And similar to what Jocelyn does, it's conversations over coffee. So if we were at a coffee shop, we'd be having a conversation just like we're having right now, except no coffee. So I will be posting something or starting something in the fall. And so if you want to check me out, Coffee with Genny B, and that's Jenny with a G.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you to our wonderful audience. You're always there with us, supporting us, clicking like. Don't forget to share this wonderful video with Jenny and connect with Jenny on LinkedIn. And don't forget also to tag You Multicultural channel when you repost our videos. Thank you so much and hope to see you next in the following 2 weeks. Bye-bye. This is Jocelyn Gilbert and I was very happy to see you.